You've worked hard, obviously, on this report with your colleagues on the group. Give us a sense of what the need is right now in planning for the next pandemic when we're not quite done with the current one.
David, I'm glad to have a chance to be with you. Look, I've seen a lot of global good causes that require investments to achieve international objectives and strengthen the international community. That's familiar. Here's what's special about this moment and this problem. The costs on an annual basis are in the low tens of billions of dollars. The benefits, if we prevent another COVID, are in the tens of trillions of dollars once you add up all the various costs and all the various remedial measures. So that could be 1,000 to 1 in terms of the annual cost versus the benefit. So the stakes are immense, and the stakes for Americans, for Europeans, this isn't just a moral issue, though it is that, with respect to poor people in poor countries. The greatest threat we have of decreased life expectancy in the United States is not war. It is a health emergency like COVID, which has seen an unprecedented decline in U.S. life expectancies. What should be done? We highlight three broad issues. The first is that we need much better governance. We don't have a system right now. We have a lot of separate institutions and a lot of separate funds and a lot of separate efforts and no political oversight. That's the way financial regulation was before the financial crisis, and that's why the world established the FSB, Financial Stability Board, to provide a much stronger and coordinated kind of governance. And while it's not perfect, we're doing much better in terms of global cooperation and financial regulation than we were. And we need something that will bring together finance ministers and health ministers to make sure that we have much more coordinated and rapid responses in the future than we had this time. Second, the international financial institutions really need to step up in a major way. I congratulate the IMF and Kristalina Georgieva, its head, on the agreement on a major SDR allocation, special drawing rights, that was agreed this week. That's a hugely important step. But we're going to need much more creativity, ingenuity, and commitment from the international financial institutions than we've seen. They were conceived and brought into being at a time when problems were in individual countries, and we needed to support countries in responding to critical issues. That's still important, but our largest challenges are increasingly global and global public goods, and the international financial institutions are going to have to step up to that challenge, and that means the world's finance ministers, the group that's here today, are going to have to give advice to the leaders of the major countries on how exactly that should be done. So the second priority is that the international financial institutions need to step up. And third, nations are going to have to commit resources if we're to be in a reasonable position the next time a problem comes. I think it is closer to right to suppose that we were lucky with respect to Ebola, with respect to MERS, with respect to SARS, with respect to H1N1, that those proved to be limited problems. I think that's closer to right to believe that that was lucky than to believe that the world had some spectacular misfortune with respect to COVID. And with the incidence of these things coming, we just need to be committing resources so that never again will it take months to procure adequate masks. Never again will there be a lack of data on the problem as it unfolds. That we will find vaccines even faster next time, and even more important, that they'll get disseminated far more effectively than is taking place this time. So this is a problem that can be solved. We can't eliminate epidemics, we can't eliminate sickness, but we can very substantially cut back the costs to the global economy if we just have the will to do it.
And that is the key question, isn't it, Larry? The will to do it. I mean, you're one of the people who has taught me that we tend to respond to crises when they're here rather than anticipating them and really provide for them in the future. What is the likelihood that will happen? We're not quite past the COVID-19 crisis globally by any means. What is the likelihood that the people that are meeting there in Venice will say, we're worried about the next one, and will commit, I think it looks like $75 billion over 5 years, about $15 billion for core contributions. What are the chances?
That's right. That commitment's not going to come at this meeting, but I am guardedly hopeful as we look towards the leaders' meeting of the G20 in October. I'll tell you, this is the moment. This issue is in focus and on people's mind right now, when every day's headline is about the Delta variant or the Lambda variant or whatever. Inevitably, attention will pass. And so if we don't take this moment to think about future prevention when the crisis is in view, it's never going to happen. I hope it will happen, and I think there are a lot of people who feel the impact of what has happened. And again, we're talking the low tens of billions of dollars in order to save the low tens of trillions of dollars. So it's about as easy an investment return choice. This is the public sector equivalent of buying Amazon in the 1990s. And the public sector doesn't get served up many of those opportunities. And so I sure hope the world's governments will take it.
Larry, this is clearly a priority. You call it a clear and present danger in your report. There are also some other priorities, and let me be very direct. Is there a willingness and a capacity to both pursue this initiative on the pandemic, on the one hand, and the climate change issues? Because there's another big issue that many people say is a clear and present danger. I think you might say that as well.
They're both absolutely critical issues. They've got somewhat different parameters. This could strike in a major way at any moment, including next winter. The climate change issue is planetary in a way that this issue is not, and is on a very long fuse. Sometimes there's no alternative to walking and chewing gum at the same time, and this is one of those times. I do think they have in common the need to build a resilient global system. And they have in common that the threat to security is resolved by global cooperation rather than by balancing power. And that's really the big new paradigm here, David, that it's achieving cooperation rather than balancing power that is the realistic need for global security. And I hope by putting them in that frame that we will make these necessary investments, because as profound and as important as they are, they're a lot cheaper than what everybody's accustomed to spending on military equipment to balance power.